And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is David Parker, near-death experiencer, which we recently had on the show, and if you haven't seen it, it's a must-see video. David was also 30 feet below the Phoenix Lights. He has had 3 alien encounters, and he has been on UFO Witness on Discovery Plus, Mysteries Decoded on the CW channel, and UFOs Fact or Fiction, which was shown in the United Kingdom. David, welcome back. It's great to have you again.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm glad to be back.
So let's start with the Phoenix Lights. How did that all play out for you?
That was an amazing experience. And this happened in 1997. And I really wasn't into UFOs at all. I was a hospice nurse at the time. I was working in Mesa, Arizona at a 10-bed inpatient hospice unit. And I lived in Phoenix. So it was, probably a 25-mile drive one way to my home. At the time, that night, I was working day shift, and the night nurse was just a tad late. So I didn't get out quite on time, but that put me at the absolute best place I could have been to have seen the Phoenix Lights UFO craft. And that was March 13th, 1997. And I was driving from Mesa west to Phoenix. We had a freeway there, I-60. And it was under construction. They were widening it. And the whole freeway was dirt. And every time I went to an overpass, I had to exit the overpass, go up over the overpass, and get back down on the freeway. And there was hardly anybody on the freeway. Everybody else was smart and took the side streets because, the freeway, again, was just dirt. And finally, by the time I was in Tempe, which is just between Mesa and Phoenix on my way home, I go up over the overpass, and there was this huge hill of construction dirt. And so I'm on top of the overpass. I'm on top of this pile of dirt. Someone later said I probably was supposed to have gone around this pile of dirt, but I was up on top of it. And I was so elevated that the nearby street light for the freeways, which are so much taller than street lights like in neighborhoods, I was parallel with the street light. It was just behind my right shoulder, maybe about 2 feet over my shoulder. And if I looked to the right, I could look down on the local housetop. So I was above rooftop high on top of an overpass on the pile of construction dirt. And as I'm getting ready to go back down the pile of dirt to get back on the freeway, I look out my window and there's this massive boomerang-shaped object floating towards me. And I'm thinking, what's this? So I slam on my brakes and I get out of my truck, have my brights on my truck. I got the street light right by me. It's shining down on the dirt and kind of reflecting up. There's still the ambient light of Phoenix shining up the city light. So I could clearly see the outline of this boomerang-shaped craft, massive. And it was rounded, kind of like how a banana is shaped, kind of that angle, huge. And there was looks like fire dripping out of it in different spots. And as it's coming up to me, it's very low elevation. And plus, I'm elevated above the ground. So it's coming up closer and closer to me. As it gets over my head, to see the tip of the left wing, I had to look straight up. But with the horizon, that's 90 degrees between looking straight up and the horizon with the sun is set, but I could still see the glow from the city. That craft took up at 90 degrees, took up about 70, 75 degrees of that 90-degree angle. I would estimate the craft to be at least a mile wide and maybe even wider from tip to tip. I've seen drawings of what other people saw for the Phoenix Lights, and it looked more like a V-shaped, and that came to a point What I saw was definitely rounded. It looked like something from the 1950s, kind of mid-century modern piece of artwork. It was absolutely beautiful, and it was so low. I had to look straight up to see the tip of the left wing, but the rest of the craft, I didn't even have to tilt my head. I could keep my head at a normal level and just raise my eyes just about 20 degrees. That's how low it was going over my head. The if it fell down, I could take like 2 or 3 steps and I could have kicked the tip of the left wing. So I'm almost directly under, the craft, the tip of the wing. Looking at it coming over, it was a gunmetal gray. It was about 80% matte finish, maybe about a 20% reflective, because I have my headlights on it and I've got that street light shining. I could clearly see the entire bottom of the craft, probably about halfway. It was so wide, the light only went so far. And it's going over my head about like this. And on the bottom, it was one completely solid piece of material. I don't know what it was made out of. And it was covered with oval indentations that looked like a thumbprint. Your mom probably used to make thumbprint cookies. That was the oval shape, maybe about 2.5, 3 feet wide. And it went horizontally from the tip, the bottom of the craft, as far as I could see inward. Thousands and thousands and thousands of them. And they weren't in a row. They were just scattered all over, but they were all heading the same way, completely covering the bottom of the craft. And with the headlights and with the street light, and then this lava stuff that was pouring out, I could see the shadows inside these indentations at the bottom of the craft. I can see it right now. The nearest light, I believe there were 7. I focused on the closest one because it looked so hot. I was really concerned about my safety. I was wondering if I was going to get burned. The I'm sure it was a circle, but since I'm seeing it at an angle, it kind of looks slightly oval. And what poured out of this opening looked like lava, a very thick, viscous liquid. And it would pour down and then form a big drip and stop and then go back up in the craft, and more would be dripping down and form a big drip and go back up. And it kept going down and up, 7, 8, 9 different streams of it at a time coming out of the opening, which is what made this light. Um, I was very concerned because it looked so hot. And I was wondering, should I get back in my truck? Should I get behind the truck? Am I going to get burned? Is there fumes? Is my face going to burn? Is there radiation, dust, chemical poisoning? There was absolutely no heat whatsoever. It didn't blow a bit of wind. If it was some sort of propulsion system, as we know propulsion, it would have blown dust around. There was no dust. There was no odor. There was no heat. There was no singeing to the skin on my face. So I stayed there and just stood at it. It looked like an upside down lava lamp. And whatever that stuff is in the lava lamp, as it carries the light from the bulb at the base of the lamp. This stuff was different because it was actually glowing itself. It produced its own light. And it was orange, like orange crushed soda. And as it would drip down and kind of stretch, where it would stretch out, it would thin, and then it would turn kind of yellow. And I remember as a kid, I was raised on a farm, and my grandmother used to make taffy. We had to make our own fun out in the middle of nowhere. And when you make taffy, you have to pull it to kind of get the air into it. Otherwise, it turns into a brick. And when you would pull taffy, when it gets thin, it changes color. And that's exactly what this stuff was doing. They poured down out of the opening in the bottom of the craft. And it would stop, kind of just sit there for a few seconds. And instead of looking like it was sucked back up into the craft, it looked like it fell up. So if you're boiling something on the stove and it boils up and pops out of the pan and goes up in the air, freezes for a second and drops back down into the pan, that's exactly the way it looked, but upside down. And the nearest opening to the craft, I focused on that one so much. It probably was a circle. It kind of looked oval because of the angle that I'm looking at it. I could see a little bit on the distal side of the opening, and probably 4 or 5 inches up into the opening, there was like a shelf, maybe a couple inches of some silver colored material, and that coated the inside of the opening of, whatever this was, this light source from the bottom of the craft. And that's where this stuff would flow down, it would stop and go back up. And the other lights I could see in a distance, they were much farther away and they looked much tinier because of the distance. The same thing was going on throughout the bottom of the craft. And it was very concerning. Again, because I thought, is there going to be consequences for this? But there wasn't. I just stood there and stared at it. And I thought for a second, I was so close to the craft. I would estimate I was 30 feet underneath the bottom of the craft. And I was so sure I could have picked up a rock because I'm standing on a construction pile of dirt and there's rocks everywhere. And I actually thought about picking up one of the rocks and chucking it at the craft just to see, is it going to tear open? Is it paper? Is it going to ping? Is it going to dent? What's it going to do? What would it sound like if I hit it? I was absolutely sure that I could have hit it. That's how close it was. But then I consider, there might be consequences. So, let's not be, start World War III here. And I didn't. Though I must say, I've thought, I wonder what would it have sounded like if I did hit it, but I didn't. As it flew over, I don't know if you can see my hand. I mean, I didn't even have to raise my eyes. It was just going like this. It was massive, absolutely massive, totally silent. And it didn't blow my hair. It didn't make it made no sound. If I didn't see it, I wouldn't have known it was there. And as it passed overhead, and it's heading from north to south, I'm heading from east to west. And as it went overhead, there was this, it's like a flag, a, a colorful mist of layers of rainbow colors and sparkling that kind of waved like a flag or like a fishtail. And it started wide and it came to a point, and it did that throughout the back of the whole craft. Again, I focused on what was the closest to me, and it was just delicate. It looked like something out of Disneyland, like a Disneyland flag of bright colors, rainbow colors and sparkles and little flashes of light and white and gold little sparkles through it. It was actually very pretty. And as that mist went over my head, it was like it was like something inside my head turned a quarter of an inch. It was like I could feel something inside kind of tick, like something right in the middle of my head moved like that. And I just felt the most incredible, loving feeling I have felt in my life. It was like it was like the best friends you ever had in the entire universe, in all of history of your soul being present. It was like the closest people, the most supportive, wonderful, loving friends you ever had just drove by and said, I love you. Just touching in, just saying hello. And I just started crying. I just had this outpour of the best thing I could say was gratitude. And I watched the craft flying south and tears just pouring down my eyes. And I just stood there and said, I thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. and I watched it just go out of sight. I guess it headed down to Tucson or something. It was it was an amazing feeling that I got, and I wondered, for a while there, I wondered, did the craft do something to me or did I do something to myself? Because seeing, a mile wide boomerang just fly barely over your head, I mean, that's like seeing a whale or something or winning the lottery or whatever. But this feeling of gratitude and happiness and peace and one with the universe, which I've pretty much been in tune with throughout my whole life, it just intensified 24 hours a day, 7 days a week since that moment. And that's been over 26 years now. And I live alone. I sit in my house by myself and I catch myself smiling just for no reason. Ever since that, it's been a constant attunement just with the universal, whatever, universe, God, spirit. And again, I've been in touch with that for in many, many ways as a hospice nurse and through experiences I've had throughout my whole life. This kind of confirmed everything. I think it was more than just a craft. And I know a lot of people criticize me, for the way I describe what I saw. I saw an amazing piece of machinery. Whoever built it was just an incredibly talented builder to build something that big that could fly so effortless. And that was a marvelous thing to see. But the feeling I got, that's the real sighting for me. It was, I think they touched in with me. I really do. I don't think it was me that just, you know, made this incredible personal, wonderful connection with that craft of gratitude and love and acceptance and, we're here for you. I really think it came from it, but I don't know. I can't prove it, and I don't want to read into it. I don't know who built the craft. I don't know who had their hand on the steering wheel. I don't know who had their foot on the pedal. I don't know where they get their gas. I don't know anything about the craft, but I know it was absolutely massive. It was built by some incredible craft builder, and um, and it just flew effortless, just effortless. And thousands of people saw it too. Of everybody I've ever heard, no one saw the lava stuff dripping down, though most everybody else, from what I heard, was looking directly up into the craft. Mostly people were looking into the lights. I'm seeing it sideways. Almost the entire craft, I was horizontal too. Everybody else, from what I've heard, is looking directly up. So maybe that's why I saw this stuff dripping down. And for now over a quarter of a century, I've been telling this to people. And they're saying, "Well, I never heard anybody say that before." I can't explain it. But recently, I ran into a guy in Canada, and he was in the Canadian Air Force back in the 1990s. And he said on that very same night in Canada, he saw a boomerang shaped craft with lava pouring down and went back up into the craft. But he didn't report it because he would have lost his commission. And now he's a commercial pilot in Canada. And I said, please let me just talk to you, just you and I. I would love to have some confirmation more about this. And I think I scared him off, and I just haven't heard back about it. That's the only other person that I've ever talked to that described this stuff, and it glowed, and the ground was orange, and I was orange, and the I had the street light and my headlight shining on the bottom of the craft, so it would make shadows in those indentations, but so did the orange glow from that lava make shadows in the indentation. Uh, I don't know what it was. Was if it was propulsion, it was a completely different form of propulsion than what we have. I can't explain it. And I guess it's not my place to explain it. It was an incredible sight. and I was in the absolute best position I could possibly be to be so elevated. It's so low, and it just coasted right over my head, and it's just like, "Hey, Dave, love you." That's my message.
I,
That's my and generally I cry talking about this.
I didn't realize that the lights were all one ship. I thought that each light was its own separate ship.
Watching it comes towards me, so I saw it from a distance coming towards it. It was one complete ship, one complete craft. Other people said that they saw it split up into different pieces. Maybe it maybe it came together or something. Other people completely saw a V shape. This was not V at all. It was a nice rounded banana-shaped boomerang. So, was it the angle that I was at? I don't know.
Did it eventually elevate or go up higher in the air so people, when they saw it, were looking up into the sky?
It had to, because I know it came. I heard that it came from Nevada down into Arizona. So we have a big drop just north of Phoenix. A drop in elevation goes from several thousand feet down to 1,000 feet where Phoenix is. So it had to go down that elevation too. So it did adjust its elevation. There's a document by Dr. Lynn Kitai. She came out probably about 15 years ago, and she interviews several people, and they said it just barely went over their housetops. So some places it was high. It must have just adjusted for whatever reason. And I don't think it made a direct beeline down south. It seemed to maybe coast over, right and left, east and west as it was heading south. I don't know what the exact trajectory was on that.
Do you feel that the lava was some sort of propulsion, or maybe it was the ship kind of trying to maintain being in our realm?
I wonder about that because now I've only heard of one other person that saw the lava stuff dripping, and so is it something that it's maybe it's testing the atmosphere, maybe it's exuding something. I don't know. I don't know what it was about. I would love some answers. Some people say it was plasma, and I've seen pictures of plasma. It didn't look like that. This looked exactly like lava. It looked physical. It looked uh, round and liquid, but slow and drippy. Um, and I've never seen lava, but I've seen it on TV, and thicker and smooth, very smooth. And it changed colors as it stretched. And then it would slow down and form these drips, just like something, a natural semi-liquid would, and then go back up into the bottom of the craft.
But the lava was the source of the lights. It wasn't like lights on a ship, like lights on an airplane.
Right. Yeah. It wasn't like there was a bulb, in the bottom of the craft. I think a lot of people did think that the whole thing was solid, and but it's an opening. It was an actual opening, and I could see just a little bit on the far side of the nearest opening. I could see just a little bit inside the opening, and there was this silver ring inside. It was like a coating or a pipe inside the opening, and that's where all this stuff dripped out. Now, did it drip out because it wanted to be seen? Is that the way it showed itself? I don't know. But I'm looking at it like this. Everybody else is seeing it like that. I'm seeing it like this. So that's maybe why I saw it dripping down. And maybe it didn't drip down everywhere. Maybe just when it was coming in my direction, maybe it turned on the drip stuff, because as I saw it coming towards me, I could see the far side of the craft, which was way off there because it was a good mile wide. And the little drips looked tiny because they were far off. And the closer it got, of course, the bigger that it looked. And the next day, I'm checking myself for radiation burns. I'm a nurse. You look at things and the hair singe or anything. I had absolutely no negative negative recourse from that. It nothing burned, no skin, no suntan, nothing like that. Didn't hurt my eyes, nothing.
Do you feel that that ship would be too complicated for humans to reverse engineer a UFO and build it themselves?
And I'm a nurse, but I can't imagine something that big built here. I mean, the hangar, it was a mile wide. The hangar had to be then 2 miles wide. And how it was huge. And there was no rivets, there was no screws, there was no cracks in the bottom where it was pieced together. There were no nails. Um, it was one solid piece of material. And like I said, the indentations that were all over the bottom, I could see just a little bit of the side, um, especially on the tip of the left wing. So I'm looking straight up at it. And as soon as it starts to curve around, the indentations stop. And it was absolutely smooth horizontally and vertically. I couldn't see the sides or the top because I'm underneath it, but I could see just a little bit of that side, all one piece.
There are videos out there of the Phoenix Lights. Have you watched those and kind of reassessed what you saw?
Dr. Lin Kitai, I know, did some video, and I understand that one person had an incredibly clear video that um, persons knocked on his door and said, "Oh, we're here to pick up your video," and it disappeared, and no one knows who those persons were. So, and the video was never seen again. So, yes, when I watch it, when I see the little lights, and unfortunately, this is 1997, and we didn't have cameras, good cameras. And people say, "Well, why didn't you take a picture?" Well, in Arizona, you don't carry a camera in your car. It's going to cook, 8 or 9 months out of the year. And I wasn't into UFOs. I don't carry cameras around to snap pictures of lights in the sky. I have absolutely no idea who built it, but it was built by incredibly skilled craftspersons.
Do you feel that they were broadcasting this signal of love and friendship?
The different people I've talked to that have seen the craft, nobody that I've talked to had a negative um, reaction to the craft. I've yet to talk to one person that had this incredible feeling of love and um, just gratitude, absolute gratitude that has stayed with me now a quarter of a century. I don't know. Was it because I was so close to it? Maybe I'm so open to spirit. I've been so open to the universe my entire childhood. I was raised with an open mind to things that are much greater um, than what's here on earth. So uh, maybe that might have been. I don't know. I don't want to read too much into it, but it was an absolutely beautiful, wonderful experience for me. Um, I've I was a hospice nurse, so you got to be a pretty nice guy to be a hospice nurse anyway. But I would have my time sometimes driving, and people going too slow, and I'd honk the horn and stuff. From that, from the time that a flaggy, multicolor mist thing went over my head, I have never honked my horn once, not once. Maybe if the light just turned green, go ahead. But no anger. And I give people a break. I let people cut in line. And this is 24/7, 24 hours a day for over a quarter of a century. And did it do something to me? Did I do something to myself? I don't know. I think it did. I think it's almost like, thank you, Dave. Here, we love you here. It was absolutely positive. It was absolutely a wonderful experience.
Now, you were almost abducted as a child. Do you think
Yes.
that has any correlation between that and you being right next to the ship?
That was that was such a bizarre thing that happened. I was raised in Southern Ohio on a little farm with my grandmother. My grandmother was born in 1889, and yeah, I was born in 1954. So we lived out in the middle of nowhere. We had no indoor plumbing. We had an outhouse out the back door and down a hill, and chickens in the yard. And on our farm, we were surrounded by corn, and across the road was we had a gravel road and pasture with dairy cattle. So it was just us out in the middle of nowhere. And one morning, I was probably around 5 years old. So this would have been about 1958, 1959, and sitting on the porch and the chickens running around. And it was a beautiful morning, a slight mist, a nice sunny day. And all at once, the chickens were freaking out. And some ran under the house, and the others, ran into the cornfields, and others ran into the pasture across the road. And I'm wondering, what's going on with the chickens? And I look around the corner of the house, and what's coming towards me, it's a stuffed Easter bunny toy. It's probably about two and a half, the body's 2.5 feet. Um, and then with the ears on top, it had a blue back, a white tummy, and then the inside of the ears were pink. And it had like a little yellow bow around its neck that was half tied. The bow was all wrinkled, and like whoever tied the bow wasn't right. And it was dirty. It was soiled, like it had been knocked around or well played with. Little Easter bunny coming towards me. Chickens are gone. I'm like a little kid, and I'm thinking this is not normal. And it's like floating in the air about a foot and a half off the ground. And it looked like if you had a toy and you're going to play with a dog or a kid with it, and you got your hand on the back of the toy and you move it back and forth, make it kind of look slightly animated. Oh, here comes the Easter bunny. That's what it was doing. I'm thinking, what the heck is this coming towards me? And as the stuffed Easter bunnies, it had button eyes and had a sewn in little mouth. I could hear, and I'm not sure if it was like a telepathy, but the mouth didn't move, or if it was a voice. It came up to me and said, I really need some help. I'm in trouble. Can you come help me? If you come with me and help me do something, we're going to have a great time. We can play. It'll just be you and me. We'll be buddies. Come on, help me. Come with me. And I kept saying, no, I don't think I'm going to come with you. And it kept saying, come on, come on. We'll have a great time. You and me, we'll be friends. Be my pal. I probably would have gone with this thing had the chickens not freaked out so much. And chickens aren't chicken because, in the yard, sometimes we get snakes coming in the yards and the chickens will go attack it and peck it to death. And we've had time where we had feral dogs, wild dogs come up in the yard, and the chickens would chase it away, especially the rooster. These things were gone. They were gone. They left me high and dry in the yard with this thing. And so I wouldn't go with it. And I kept saying, come on, we'll have a great time. Come on. And I wouldn't. And so I kind of started backing away. I'm on the front porch. And then the Easter bunny, this stuffed toy Easter bunny, I know this sounds crazy, started backing up, and it went around the corner of the house, and I couldn't see it. And I'm thinking, what's it going to do? Is it going to, run around the house and grab me? What's going to happen? So I kind of grabbed the side of the house, and I'm putting my head over the corner of the porch, and it had turned around, and I see the back of the Easter bunny, the back of the head and the ears, and I could see the Easter bunny down to about the shoulders, and behind the Easter bunny is what looked exactly like a dinosaur. It looked about 2.5 feet tall, maybe 3 feet tall. It was very fat, a pig-like body. Um, it had four legs. I could see the legs. They were bent backwards, kind of like how a reptile would be. It had spikes down its back and went down. The spikes went all the way down to a tail that dragged on the ground. I couldn't see the head. It looked like the head was maybe down. I could see the shoulders and the back and the sides. And it looked like maybe the snout of the dinosaur was stuck in the back of a stuffed toy Easter bunny. And someone else said later, maybe it was morphing. It was morphing from the shape of an Easter bunny into its normal form. Well, I knew nothing about UFOs, and of course I was just a kid. So as it's walking off past the corner of the house, I run inside and get my grandmother, and I told her, there's this Easter bunny, and it looks like a dinosaur, and it's trying to get me to go with it. Well, she's grabbing a gun and run. Love that woman running outside and chasing it around the corner of the house. If she saw it or had any encounter with it, she didn't say anything to me. Maybe she didn't want to alarm me. And we're out in the middle of nowhere, so we had guns everywhere. And I'm sitting there thinking, should I get a gun and go, save her or whatever? But pretty soon she comes back and she just said, if anything, man or beast ever tries to get you to go with it, don't ever go with it. I don't know what happened. I stayed in the house for like the next couple days, and my grandmother just went from window to window for several days looking out to see if, whatever this was coming back. She totally 100% believed me. And it took about 30 or 60 minutes before the chickens started to come back. And I have sat on this now for over 60 years, and my only true witness has been chickens, which is kind of sad. I've seen spirits all my life. I've seen, ghosts. This was not that. So I sat on this. I never told anybody for years and years and years, again, over 60 years. And then last October of 2022, I went to my very first UFO event called the UFO Congress, and that was in Mesa, Arizona. And they had a session there called the Experiencer Series. And people get to stand up and tell their story. And I was going to talk about the Phoenix Lights because, I had no idea what this thing was with the Easter Bunny. And this man stood up, who was also from Ohio, and talked about when he was a little kid, the Easter Bunny tried to get him to go away with it. And what he saw was a cartoon character, Easter Bunny, and I tried to get him to go, and he wouldn't go, and off it went. The next person that stood up, also from Ohio, had the same experience where an animated Easter bunny tried to get him to go away with it. Well, I'm freaking out because I've been sitting on this story like 63, 65 years with no clue what on earth it could possibly be. I was almost in tears. And finally I got to speak, and I thought I had the same thing, except it was what I saw was a stuffed toy. It wasn't animation at all. And finally, I kind of realized, we got one TV channel maybe, and I rarely got to see cartoons. So a cartoon really wouldn't mean much to me. And we're out in the middle of nowhere, and cars would drive by with sacks of clothes and food, and they would leave it at the side of the road for my grandmother and I, and then take off. I'm sure we looked quite destitute out there. I mean, with no plumbing, nothing. And now and then they would leave an old toy, a dirty toy, or all my clothes were used, all my shoes were used. I never had anything new. So an animated cartoon Easter bunny wouldn't have made sense to me. I didn't see cartoons. And a nice, fluffy, wonderful new toy I wouldn't know what that was. Everything was used. So a dirty stuffed Easter bunny toy perfectly would be acceptable to a little farm boy out in the middle of nowhere. I finally put this on social media, and I've now talked to over 3 dozen people that have had the exact same thing happen to them. They were much younger than I am. Like 20, 30 years younger than I am. And they were seeing cartoon characters that were popular when they were children. One saw Captain Crunch, one saw the Ninja Turtles, um, uh, Woody from Toy Story. They were seeing different things that the different cartoon characters that meant something to them, and every single time they tried to get the child to go with them, but the child wouldn't. And I was weird after talking to 3 dozen people with this, and I realized something's major going on with someone taking on the form of a cartoon character to abduct children for whatever reason. I talked to this one lady, and she did go with it. And for her, it was Santa Claus. And the sleigh would come up, and instead of hopping in the back of the sleigh like you would with Santa, with the elves and everything, there was like a trap door in the back of the craft, and the door would open, and she would have to go through the chute. And she had the most bizarre stories of where they took her. She was told it was the North Pole, but it didn't sound anything like the North Pole. And she had medical examinations, and she had some horrific um, things done to her. But one thing she said, and she had not heard my story, is that twice when Santa turned around, his Santa outfit opened up, and it was a dinosaur. It was the rear end of a dinosaur, fat, with the thick legs and the tail dragging on the ground with those little spikes, exactly the way I saw. And she had not heard my stories. I'm getting goosebumps. And what a healing thing for that, for me to hear someone else saw the exact same thing. When my only validation for 60 plus years was, a flock of chickens. And now, I've got the 3 dozen people that have been nearly abducted like and then this girl that saw the exact same thing that I did. What it is, I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. I don't. And why do they need permission from the child to go with them? I mean, why can't they just grab us and run off with us? I don't know, but from whatever reason, they need permission from us. That was scary.
People talk about reptilian aliens, but I would think they would be more humanoid reptilian mix, not more like a dinosaur.
Of course, I didn't see the head, but the rest of the body was plump and four-legged. I have no clue, no clue, and I never thought anything alien, um, until I heard all these other people's stories. That's happening again and again and again, and then, of course, I'm finding out about reptilian, aliens that people are saying that they have contact with. I don't know. I don't know what it was, but it happened, and it was a part of my life, my entire life, that I have been puzzled with for 6 decades and finally got some closure. What a relief it is that people stood up and told their truth, or I'd still be sitting on this. I wouldn't be talking about it at all. No idea what was going on. But something's going on with children. And I thought maybe we need to interview all these 3 dozen people I've talked to, or somebody needs to research it.
Can you tell us about your other alien encounters?
For years, as a nurse, um, I would work weekends because I love to go camping. And so I would work mostly Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I could go camping Monday through Thursday when everybody else is at work. So whenever I went camping, um, it was just me. And being in Arizona was so nice. The desert, and when it's nice and cool, it's a perfect place to camp. And then when it's hot here, I go up to the mountains and camp in the woods. So I camped almost every weekend for decades. Um, One time, I was in the desert in the southwest part of the United States. It was a full moon. Full moon was kind of low in the sky, and it was so bright you could actually read by it. And I'm in my truck, have my camping gear, have my lights, and right at about maybe 2 or 3 in the morning. Um, at the time, I was working night shifts, so I pretty much kept that sleep schedule. So I'd be up at nights and sleep days. So I was wide awake, and about 4 feet behind the back of my truck, something was walking by. I could clearly see the outline because the full moon was low in the sky and very bright. And I had some lights on in my truck. It was about 8 feet tall, had a long oval head. It had like a tube hanging from the jaw area, about 4 feet down the front of its abdomen. Had about a foot long neck, leaning a little bit forward, big shoulders, very long arms. The elbows were much lower than ours. It was below its waist. Very, very skinny, like this, like unnaturally skinny. It's like, how could it remain upright? It was that skinny. Long legs. I couldn't make out the hands, and it was struggling like it was walking. It was like walking like it was in water, like when you walk in a swimming pool, that resistance, or like it was hungry, or like it was hurt. It was struggling for every step. And as it got right behind my truck, and I'm probably 5 feet away from it, or 5, 6 feet away from it, it stops and it turns its shoulder slightly. And then this huge head with this long thing turns 90 degrees sideways with this freakishly long neck. And it's staring at me and I'm staring at it. And I'm thinking, this is it. You know, it looks, I kept thinking, it looks hungry. Well, it didn't threaten me. I kind of scared myself thinking that. But it stared at me and I'm staring at it. And then it turns its head back forward and then continues on, struggling with every step. And finally, it's out of sight. It's in the dark. Well, I decided, you know, I'm on its territory. I had just, pulled up there probably just a couple hours prior. So I decided to leave. So I back out. I'm tearing off like my camping gear flying out of the back of my truck. I thought, whatever's going on out there, I got away. Yeah, I'm not going to go back. So finally, I did go back. I knew I was going to go back, as I just had to validate what I saw. So I went during the daytime, and this is out in the middle of nowhere. There's no one around. It's on a dirt road, not even a gravel road, out in the desert. It was very flat. And I knew where the location was because I had camped in that area before. I went back to the spot, and of course, there was nothing there. I found a little bit of camping gear and some stuff. So it was a beautiful day. I thought I might as well go out hiking. So I drive down the road just a little bit, maybe a mile or two away, and find a place to start hiking. And as I get out of my truck, I'm hearing all this digging sounds, like about 15 diesel engines and backhoes and grinding sounds and beep, 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 like when a truck goes backwards. But there's nothing anywhere. It's flat. There's no one anywhere around. There's no one for probably 25, 30, 40 miles from where I am. I'm out in the middle of nowhere. And actually, I got back in my truck and drove around thinking, well, maybe behind a hill, there's somebody's doing some construction. There was nothing. I went back to that same spot and there's this digging, digging, digging sounds. I go, what's going on? Where's it coming from? So, being a kid, grew up with a Lone Ranger, and what do you do when you want to, you hear if somebody's riding towards you, you put your ear to the ground and listen. So I did. I got on my hands and knees, put the ear to the ground, and all of this sound, this digging, massive digging sound, it's all from underground. And it didn't sound like spaceships digging. It sounded like earthly mechanical machinery digging, lots of it. And I thought, well, that's bizarre. And as I stood up, right ahead of me are two huge white trucks, and they weren't there 45 seconds ago. And they were, I don't know what make they were. They were very, very big. And the glass, the windshield was onyx black. The chrome was so shiny and bright, it was reflecting the sun or some sort of light coming off of it. It was actually hard to look at it. And the paint was like a luminescent white that I've never seen in my life. The tires were absolutely coal black. You're out in the desert, and in 1 minute, you're covered in dust. There was not a speck of dust on either one of these trucks, and they're looking right at me. And I got to thinking, they weren't there seconds ago. So I thought, well, maybe I'm not supposed to be hearing all this underground digging. So I better get out of here. So I turned around to get into my truck, and then behind me, there's two more of these trucks. Out of nowhere, they appeared, get massive pickup trucks and glowing like luminescence, almost like a slight mother of pearl luminescence to them. Not a bit of dust on them, cleaner than showroom clean. I think, and I'm in trouble. I better get out of here. So I slowly, nonchalantly go down the dirt road, and I'm driving about 7 miles before I get to an actual paved road. I keep looking in my rear view mirror, and they're not following me. So I think, I'm going to be okay. So I get to a paved road. There's two more trucks sitting there. One pointing south and one pointing north. So whichever way I went, there's going to be a truck right behind me. I'm thinking, oh my God, this is it. This is it. So I decided to go south. And as I got on the paved road, the truck went right behind me, and it's right on my bumper. And then the other one that was facing the other way turns around and it starts chasing me. So I'm going down the road, 2-lane road, 90 miles an hour in my little Toyota Tacoma. And I don't think I've ever had it to 90 miles an hour in my life. And this truck is right behind me, and the other truck's trying to pass me. And it was so bizarre because I'm hearing the engine of my truck roar, but I'm not hearing any engine on the truck behind me or next to me. And I noticed that, there's bugs. I'm banging into bugs. My windshield's getting all, crickets or whatever, smacked with bugs. And I'm looking in the rearview mirror at the truck behind me. There's not a single bug on its windshield. And and I'm covered in dust. There's no dust. There's no dirt. There's no bugs on the truck trying to pass me either. And I'm going from um, lane to lane, trying to keep the truck behind me, and the truck from passing me. I'm going for like about 10 miles, and there was a farmhouse that looked almost deserted. I thought, well, maybe if I go in there, they'll think I live there. And as I take the exit, simultaneously, the two trucks slow down, make a U-turn, and go back. And I don't know what it was. When I got home, I assumed that there's going to be more trucks there. They would know who I was, but there wasn't. And I've not heard anything about it since. And I kept my mouth shut for many years on this. This is about 2015. And my concern was, why are they chasing me when there's this 8-foot ant creature right down the dirt road from it? Why are they after David and not it? And I always kind of wondered, is it alien? Is there something going on underground that's maybe human and alien? Somebody later told me it might have been a screen image that I heard the sounded like diesels, and that I saw these perfect trucks that never hit a single bug, never had a bit of dust on them, chasing me. I have no idea what it was.
Did they look like your regular pickup truck?
It looked like the perfect pickup truck. There was no make on it, and they were huge. There was something not right about them. They were way too perfect. They were they were almost like artistic, almost artistic looking. They made no sound. They made no motor noise. They didn't hit a bug. Um, there was something not right about them. They were way too white. They were way too perfect. But they did look like trucks. They looked just like trucks, but large. Uh, Bigger than, I was trying to think of a Tundra, but it was much bigger than a Tundra. I don't know what make it was.
I'm assuming the windows were tinted and you couldn't see inside.
Yeah, black. total black onyx black, couldn't see a thing because I kept looking. And you would think, maybe get a glimpse of something, but nothing. Of course, I was trying to, keep my truck on the road, but I kept looking in the rear view mirror. And then the one that was coming up on the side of me, those windows were absolutely, totally black. I couldn't make out anybody inside. And the tires were black. And even driving that little bit on the dirt before we got to the paved road, the tires would have picked up some dust there. There was nothing. It was showroom clean the whole time and it was right next to me as they were chasing me, and then up to the point where they stopped and turned around. Absolutely showroom clean. So what was that? Was that another memory screen? I don't know what it was. My concern was maybe whatever's going underground might be for national security. We got so much stuff going on the planet today. Maybe they're building some base with missiles or something or whatever. But again, why was there this 8-foot ant-like creature, just a mile or two back? Is it human? Is it alien? I haven't given out the coordinations because I thought, what if? What if, this secrecy really needs to be maintained for this location. And it's bizarre that they could have taken me out at any moment because I'm out in the middle of nowhere. They could have made me disappear. They could have made my truck disappear, but they didn't. They didn't. They let me go. And would they have run me off the road? I don't know, but they didn't. And they got me scared. They got me out of there, and I have never been back. I go way out of my way to not even go near that area. I don't know what's going on out there.
Do you feel that the drivers of the trucks were human, like the men in black, or ETs?
Um, I do some remote viewing. In fact, I practice with a group of people that in my meditation group, and we practice a form of remote viewing. And actually, I did it to that area. And when I was doing my meditation, and I was projecting, we call it projector intelligence, uh, to that location, I quickly saw what looked like the head of mantis and the head of ants stop and look at me. And then it looked like the symbol that came through to me was two huge doors slamming shut and someone screaming, "No." And I was just, back from my meditation state. And I was like, I didn't know. I didn't know what it was. The the insect heads that I saw at the time, I just assumed they were insects. And you get in the desert, we don't have mantises in the desert. That's what it looked like. But ants we did. And I just wrote that off as maybe, I was zooming in and saw some bugs. And it wasn't until later when I found MUFON and I started finding out about the UFO community that I found out that there is this insectoid type of being. And maybe that was part of it. I don't know. I never tried that again, never went back. I definitely think that there's something non-human going on out there. And everybody's looking towards the skies. And I keep telling people, forget the skies, look underground. Look underneath, pay attention to that. I don't know if there are ways to put seismic sensors on, or maybe just leave them be. They might be doing some very valuable work, and maybe we don't need a bunch of YouTubers going out there with a pack of beer and taking selfies, because this could be incredibly valuable work that definitely deserves its secrecy.
What other encounters have you had?
I had one other, and that was again on a camping trip, and I was up in northern Arizona. It was about 4 in the morning. I was going to meet some friends, and we were going to go hiking around 6 or 7 in the morning. I'm the only person up in the area. I pull into a parking space Um, it was very, very nice camping trail area. No one else was there. It was just me. And as I pull into the parking space and I'm backing in, I was driving a little fast, and my headlights I have them on bright. And I'm pulling into the parking space. My headlights are on three beings standing at the other side of the parking lot. One was about 5.5 feet tall, and the other two are about 3.5 feet tall. Um, the shorter ones were in front of the taller one. They were on either side of it. They look like, I don't know if they're from space, but they look like they were in spacesuits, covered head all the way down to their feet. It was an off silver, um, completely solid, with slight dimples all over it. Very thick, almost like a skinny gingerbread man shape. A rounded head, two arms, two legs, and where the face would be, there was a little indentation, and it was covered with mesh, looked kinda like a ramen noodle. Everything was like, a gunmetal silver color. Again, it was slightly reflective, and, I couldn't see anything beyond the mesh. Just completely covered the eye area. I have my brights on them. I'm probably about 20 feet away from them. Um, I'm still in gear. I just got my foot on the clutch and my headlights right on them. They're looking at me. I'm looking at them, and I just sit there for probably 30, 40 seconds. And at unison, the two smaller ones turn to their right and start to walk off. And as they turn to their right, they become very, very thin, maybe about half an inch thin. And as they walk away, they look like stick figures. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what's going on? My feeling was it looked like mom and the kids going for a walk. I don't know if that is what it was, but there was a taller one and two small ones. And as the two small ones were walking away, the bigger one is just continually, we're face to face. And I go in gear and I turn around and I leave the parking area. And as I leave the parking area, I keep thinking, oh, I should stop and see if there's a craft or something going, whatever's going on. Maybe I should go back and try to communicate with them. And then I just realized, they weren't threatening me, but they weren't welcoming me. So I left and I ended up standing up with my friends to go hiking that morning. I was wondering if the reason that they look so thin is a camouflage. Maybe it's something that the suit does. Had had I just drove right onto them, and if they were standing sideways, they would have blended in with the brush in the background. But I had come up from behind them, went along their left side, and then parked right in front of them. Maybe they didn't have a chance to know which way to turn to be camouflaged to me. So I don't know who they were. I don't know what that was. That was just a that was just an amazing occurrence.
Why do you think Arizona has so much UFO activity?
I think for one thing is you can see so much. We don't have trees to block your view. We generally have very clear skies. Now and then we have some dust. We don't have that many clouds usually. I think we have nice weather, so we're outside all year round, where other parts of the country don't. Um, I wonder if there's something about the land, if there's something about the geology. Um, we have so much, um, we have dense cities, and then everything else is sparsely populated. So you can drive for miles and miles and miles and see nobody. So I wonder if it's a place to hide, especially underground out here. And if something's in the sky, you're going to see it out in Arizona. So, and then the skies are so dark. Again, we don't have cities. If you're not in the city, I mean, you're out in the middle of nowhere. It's just totally dark. What do you think?
You have Sedona there, and people report of the energy vortexes. Maybe that attracts them.
Sedona certainly does have some strange things going on, and this thing with these beings, it was right around Sedona that that happened, the three beings. So who knows? I don't know. Have they been here for a long time? And I don't know, when America was populated, we kind of went from the East Coast slowly out west. Is there something with the geology? I don't know. I don't have an answer. I'm sure people have ideas.
What's remarkable is that you're still being affected by the Phoenix lights even today.
The positive impact I got from that has been absolutely constant. Constant 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's almost 27 years now. This coming March will be 27 years. Day and night, I feel that effect. I feel this appreciation, this joy, this gratitude, this connection with the universe, this connection with not just people, but like the energy, the space between people, between minerals and rocks and animals and plants. It's just a connection with everything that is. And it happened. It I was in tune before, but it was like um, a major mindset, a major intuition from inside, a change from inside that has been permanent since the time that little mist thing went over my head. I felt this click, and it's never gone back. It's never stopped. It made me a better person. It's made me a better nurse. It made me a more patient person. Um, Even after I stopped doing hospice and I went into the emergency room, and you're working in constant panic. People are having their worst experience and they come to the emergency room, and it was just a calmness through the whole thing. It's something happened, and it was very positive for me, and it's been absolutely consistent.
Have you had contact with just other spirits or energies besides ETs?
Those are my only four ET experiences I've had throughout my entire life. I've had many, many, many spirit encounters, and yeah, so did my grandmother, so did my mom and my dad. I was raised in a household where if we saw something, we just talked about it over dinner. It was absolutely normal. So I was never shamed, um, seeing things or feeling things. I think a lot of people had that. If they saw something as a child, they had kind of had it kicked out of them. I didn't. I didn't. I've always been open, and I was open with my children with that too. So did that make a difference? I don't know. I don't know. I think I said in my last interview, my grandfather saw a UFO, and I believe my dad was a part of something with the government. And who knows what would have happened with my children? Maybe it would have carried on for another generation. I don't know.
Do you think in a previous life you could have been an ET?
Why not? Um, just because we were born this time on the physical planet of Earth, uh, I mean, who knows? Um, I think having seen so many spirits, and I know life goes on beyond the physical plane. So it has to go beyond just this planet, this piece of dirt, um, this round piece of dirt spinning around where we are. Um, do we continue on different planes? Uh, my parents brought me up in a path called Surat Shabda Yoga. The modern day form is Ekankar. And we're taught about spiritual evolution and the idea of leaving the body and experiencing the spirit worlds while we're still alive, and to get spiritual liberation by focusing on the light and the sound of God. And of course, that's religion, and that's one little viewpoint. But it has put me in so much contact, I believe, with spirits, perhaps with the ETs. I don't know. Um, does it matter if we're brought back from one form to another, from one body to another? As a spiritual individual, I think we go on, whether it's in a body or to a higher plane. And maybe we need to experience the universe at all levels, including the outer conscious level, the physical level, and the spiritual level at the same time. And maybe eventually we evolve. We only need to be in the spiritual level. Who knows? Who knows? That's kind of a feeling I have. It just makes sense. It's something I get inside. And, you can study things and you can argue religions, but that's using your brain. And I think to touch in with the spiritual force, you need to stop thinking and just allow that force to come through. I think the doors to spirit and to the universe open inward. And the only thing we have to do to appreciate spirit and to communicate with it is to merely remove the roadblocks and the packages that we separate ourselves between us and it. So it's very simple.
David, after watching this podcast, people may want to reach out to you and share their experiences with you. Are you open to that? And if so, how do they contact you?
Hey, I have my own channel. I just started. It's called Uncle Dave's Kitchen. It was going to be a cooking channel, but so far I'm just doing videos on some of my spirit encounters that I've had. And so certainly touch in with me there.
Leave you comments on your videos?
That would be perfect. Yes.
All right. Well, before we finish up, can you leave us with one last positive message?
I think we exist because God loves us. And if you'll focus on what may seem like a tiny little coincidence in your life, a dime on the sidewalk, some birds flying overhead or something, I think very often the universe speaks to us in such simple little ways because it wants us to lean closer to it. And when if someone shouts at you, you tend to back up. If someone whispers, you tend to lean forward. And I think the universe wants us to lean forward closer and closer to us. And I believe it gives us experiences, small little experiences, sometimes some big experiences, just to get us to pay attention more and more to it. And the more you focus on that divine source, the more you're going to get from it. That's it.
David, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.